That gets better every time.
Welcome, my friends, to this fine radio program known as Smokin' and Toastin'. It's the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Welcome to show number 88. As we discuss today, a full update on the status of cigar rights. A lot has changed in the past couple of days, so we'll bring you there's bad news and good news, so we'll bring you all of it. Plus, James Brown will be back in the studio with us. Actually, he's already here.
He's already here if you're watching us.
Him on,
but he's going to pretend like he's not here, at least for the first segment.
Yeah, that's right. He's just going to sort of watch and get cold drinks ready for us, because he's going to be debuting. Well, I don't know. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 7 of them up here and 1 back here. And James, are you trying to get us intoxicated?
This is a drinking show, isn't it?
It is a drinking show.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, we're looking forward to. You are with Cutwater Spirits, and Cutwater Spirits is related to where you used to be, which is.
Well, we used to be part of Ballast Point, the brewery.
Right.
The founders of Ballast Point are also the founders of Cutwater.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, when the brewery split away and became acquired by Constellation Brands, the owners maintained rights to the
held on
distillery.
to Cutwater. Yeah,
that's right. Rebranded as Cutwater, and now we're back to Texas. Some of the portfolio people recognize because it was here for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the bottled spirits, but we've developed this line of canned cocktails, which is kind of what we're known for now. So
well, we're looking forward to trying these. These look really varied and interesting.
They are.
Good. We're looking forward to that. Our program is brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, Texas. And want to quickly say thanks so much to Joseph's Coffee and Cigars in Richmond for what was an absolutely enjoyably fun show last week. Those guys were our hosts, and to our special guest Clay Roberts with La Polina Cigars, who was terrific on the program as well, and left behind some nice smokes that apparently, well, let's put it this way, he walked out of the room and they wound up in my bag. So that's just how
that place was a blast.
Wasn't that fun?
Like, you think Richmond, Texas, you're a little bit in the country.
Did you go look at all the classic guns?
I did.
Yeah.
It was. I even had to snap some pictures. The average gun in there, I think that the less expensive bird guns, these are shotguns. We're looking at very ornate shotguns, and most of them over 100 years old.
Yeah, these are classics.
The least expensive one I saw in there was almost $4,000. Like, these are like really high end. The clothes that they had there. Mm-hmm. So I immediately walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this jacket.
Mm-hmm.
$1,300.
Well, these are like authentic
yes.
English smoking jacket type jackets.
It was
right?
beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Well, they could not have been nicer, and they've got a great facility. I encourage anyone to go check them out because they're definitely worth your time, and they got really cool people to come and hang out there too. It's just it's very different for a cigar lounge, very different. And if you're into coffee, they got great coffee.
The coffee was good.
So thank you to those guys for being such great hosts. Wow, what's going on? Premium cigar exemption, good news and bad news. We'll get to that. Well, gosh. Oh, there's a new machine out that brews coffee, tea, and beer. I'll tell you about that. A countertop machine. How great an idea is this? It's like Mr. Coffee, except it's Mr. Beer.
I need like a Keurig style machine with beer pods.
That's exactly what it is.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, it has the hops and the yeast and it's perfect. You're gonna love this.
Nuts.
So I'll be telling you about that coming up on the show. Oh, we got the goods. But it's been an interesting week. A whole lot going on. I'm just curious if you had a moment to slow things down a little bit, Ian, and enjoy a fine cigar at any point.
I did, actually, and it's a funny one because I picked it up at Joseph's Cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one that Clay Roberts had last week. He was talking about
while he was on the show?
While he was on the show. It was the second cigar that he picked up to smoke.
Because he didn't smoke his own cigars. He smoked other people's
someone
cigars.
else's cigars.
Yeah, that was interesting, I thought.
That guy was entertaining anyway. But anyway, I picked it up because it looked really interesting. I hadn't had it, and it was a Espinosa. Let's see if I can actually say this. It's Murcielago.
Murcielago, yes.
Murcielago. However you say it. You're right. There's a Lamborghini by the same name, by the way. It's like one of the top line Lamborghinis.
Isn't there
As
a
if
resort
any of their
too?
stuff is bottom line.
Murcielago Resort? Oh, that's Miralago. Sorry, my bad.
I believe it translates to the bat. This was a very dark.
That wouldn't be a good resort, by the way.
The bat.
That wouldn't be a good resort name.
So the construction on this thing's beautiful. The label is awesome. It's very like clean lines, very Lamborghini-esque label on it. I'll put a picture of that a little later. The cigar itself was incredibly dark chocolate, almost black. It was a San Andreas Maduro wrapper. Pardon me, Nicaraguan binder and fillers. This was medium to full flavor. The size that I had was a box press. I believe it was about a 52 by 6.
Wow,
sounds about right. Pretty good size cigar. The initial smell, the pre-light, was very chocolatey, very full, very robust kind of tobacco smells. The initial light on this tasted just like the rest of the cigar. It was delicious. It started off with this huge chocolatey flavor, and little bits of like burnt caramel in there, and some nuttiness, and it just kept going. Like, this was delicious.
you dug this.
Oh, I did. I enjoyed it all the way down. It did go out on me, and I was tending it. So the first third of the cigar was fantastic. The second third of the cigar was just as fantastic. Like, it reached a sweet spot almost instantly and stayed there all the way through. At the third third of the cigar, it went out on me, and like I said, I was tending it. It just went out. I relit it, no penalty whatsoever.
Gotta love when that happens.
Yep. And then most of the way through the third third of the cigar, it went out on me again. I said, I'm done with it. I would buy it again. It's about an $8 cigar, I believe.
Yeah.
And price to quality, I enjoyed it enough to give it a 6. I thought, if I can get a cigar that smokes, this won't taste this good at $8. I'm very happy with it. I would have been happy paying $12 for that cigar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're giving it a 6, it means at 10 or 12 you'd have been happy.
Right, and for those of you who aren't familiar with our price to quality index, you got 0 to 10, and if you put it at 5, you get exactly what you're paying for. It's a wonderful cigar. If you put it at less than that, you paid too much for that cigar. You're not as happy with the outcome. I gave it a 6. That means I feel like I got a little more than I paid for. I'm very happy with that cigar.
I love that you call it an index. That makes it seem so, like, important.
You know what? I think I got that from Christopher Hart.
I love Christopher Hart.
Look, I think he did that to us.
Okay, so you mentioned Christopher Hart. I've been threatening to do this for the last couple of shows and then never followed through, so I'm going to do it early this week. Chris Hart has his own show. It's the Whiskey Neat Podcast. It's fairly new, and it's very, very cool. It's centered around barrel-aged spirits and the people who make them. Chris interviews every week some of the most interesting industry insiders, samples some of the best spirits around, and it is at mywhiskeyneat.com. mywhiskeyneat.com. So you have to check him out because he's one of our favorite guests.
I ran into him last night, actually.
Yeah, you were at that whiskey event, right?
Yes, I got to meet
that?
the master distiller at from Buffalo Trace.
Nice.
It was fun. We had a good time. The swag bag was awesome.
Yes.
They didn't have a shirt quite large enough for me, but Tiffany got 2 shirts.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Somebody has to carry home the
Give it
swag.
a bottle opener and a new hat.
I love it.
It was pretty sweet.
I had an interesting cigar this week, and actually, I'm lying a little bit because I had this a couple of weeks ago, and just with everything going on in last week's show, I didn't have a chance to really talk about it. But I had posted a photo of this on our Facebook page, or on my Facebook page, I think, and promised to talk about it. So I wanted to get back to it, and it's only today that I realized I think you may have actually given me this cigar. It's a Tatuaje, a Reserva K222 Broadleaf. Now that's a whole mouthful of a name.
That's a pretty good sized cigar too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Adam had asked me what the K222 means. I said I don't know. It might be like the region or the plot of land that the tobacco was grown on. I don't know, but I'll just open up.
Maybe it stands for the 11th letter of the alphabet, and then
I'll just say it was a fantastic and a very special cigar. It Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, Nicaraguan binder and filler. It's made by the My Father factory in Esteli, or Esteli, I believe is the correct way you say the Nicaraguan city. The pre-light was rich and flavorful, toasty tobacco with leather from the first puff, rich and tasty, not quite as full as I was expecting. You know, Tatuajes can be pretty serious cigars. But it was very nice. Notes of oak, pleasant spice, nutty toastiness throughout. As complex a cigar as I've had in a while. It was really a lot going on, and you got to savor it. It was really terrific. Didn't knock me out in any one particular way, but just was all around fantastic. Just, I would totally buy and smoke this. It's about a $12 cigar. P to Q, I'd give it a solid 6, which means I wouldn't have been disappointed at 15 or 16. I'd have felt like I got what I paid for. So there you go.
You know, you're pretty good with your description there. You should think about doing this for a living. Like that was poetic.
When I was out in Los Angeles, I called an old friend of mine that I've known for years but haven't talked to in a while. And I asked him, I said, so how are you? How you doing? And he goes, well, apparently not as good as you. You're getting paid to drink whiskey and smoke cigars. I was like, you know, if you look at it that way, life doesn't suck too badly. James Brown with Cutwater Spirits is here. We're going to come back in the next segment and begin doing some tasting. We also have some beers to taste. And I will bring you this news about the very latest in the fight against regulation for premium cigars. James, what are we going to open with? Do you have a thought?
I think we should start with the vodka mule.
Okay. Is that one of your most popular ones?
It is. It is the most popular.
Okay.
Our ginger beer is very spicy, and it's just fantastic.
All right. We'll start with that, and we will also talk beer and cigar regulation and why there's bad news and good news, and I'm really actually very encouraged by the good news. So that's all coming up at Smoking and Toasting, show number 88, and we will be right back.
Ah, yes.
I need to get cigar X from you guys, because I don't know anything, but I like cigars. So I was walking the store, I'm like,
What to get?
I like the index too.
Do you like Do you like a more mild cigar or a more robust cigar?
I think it kind of just depends on the occasion. You know,
Gotcha.
if you're, I mean, I kind of like beer. Like I appreciate everything, but there's certain
Sometimes
certain
you want
moods where you want to smoke all day, or you're outside.
Well, one that I tell people, if they don't smoke cigars a lot, but it's guaranteed and most places will have it, is the Arturo Fuente Hemingway. Anything in the Hemingway line is fantastic.
Okay.
They're mild to medium, usually a little more towards the medium, but great cigar.
Rocky Patel, pretty much his whole line, very consistent, not overpriced.
Yeah.
And a variety of different styles and flavors, but all very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all very good.
Mr. Patel, also a very nice guy.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how many do you think you guys want to tackle? I mean, are you being facetious when you say you want to do them all?
Let's see, we got 4 segments left. Let's just go. Let's go a couple of segments, and we'll throw a beer in every once in a while.
Wait a second. You mean this is all you brought?
I have more if you really want it. So, I mean, I thought it would be nice to kind of represent each of the spirits that we make.
Right.
And I also brought, our more popular ones. So, obviously, here we have the Mule. I got a vodka soda, which we could skip because you guys don't seem like vodka guys to me.
Oh.
Maybe you are.
Oh.
Okay. The tequilas are super cool. We have a gin. We have bourbon. And then
we should try a little of everything.
Yeah, but we want to finish with the Bloody Mary because it's spicy and it'll wreck your palate for everything else. Or maybe, I'm going to leave this with you guys anyway, so I just feel like we got to end with something badass.
Okay, wonderful. Let's do it.
So, and let people know we don't just make candy cocktails.
Yeah. And I'll ask you about that rum that we had that time too. Is that still available?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready, Chris?
Yes, sir. Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. We are so glad to have you enjoying the program with us. Special hats off to Ian, who has rigged our video today, because our normal video that we shoot on, apparently one of the video cards crashed and burned. So Ian has done quite a MacGyver job with his phone, and so this way we at least still have video feed. So it may not be our normal, video stuff, but at least we're here.
So if you're watching this, don't call me right now because we're actually
'Cause
recording this on my phone.
Yeah, that's right. You'll mess up the whole feed.
And that's the surest way to guarantee that
somebody's gonna call.
Oh yeah, so you got friends dialing you right now, I'm afraid. So here's what happened with cigar rights. The cigar organizations, Cigar Rights of America, and a number of the organizations that have teamed up with them to try to get premium cigars exempted from this upcoming regulation that's completely unfair and would be devastating in many ways to the premium cigar industry. They've been fighting this. They went to a judge in D.C. to try to get the exemption for the premium cigars added to this, and the judge basically threw it out. So there's an appeal possible on this, but this was what was considered the best hope to get premium cigars not included in this legislation. And the judge basically threw it out. So it was a lawsuit. The judge said, nope, not going to hear it. So that's the bad news. The good news is, not even a day later, the premium cigar exemption has been included in another bill. It's the 2019 appropriations bill that, if passed in its current form, will exempt premium cigars from this upcoming rule, final deeming rule by the FDA. So Congress has never ruled favorably for the cigar industry in the past. So that makes it a bit of a long shot, but the fact they were able to get it included this quickly, and it was included in a bipartisan effort by one Democrat, one Republican senator. So it's not something that's going to be opposed necessarily on one or the other side of the aisle. So I'm optimistic about it, actually. The fact that they were able to get it on there, and it's part of the 2019 appropriations bill, it would have to be struck from the bill in order to, which it's
that
much
means they
harder
have to
do
read
that.
the whole thing too.
Exactly, and let's just, as we all know, that never happens. So, so we got our fingers crossed on this. Hopefully, this can actually turn out well. General Cigars has gotten an early start, by the way, on the new warning labels, the ones that have to be like a third of the size.
I've read about that.
Yeah, they've actually started putting that on some of their boxes.
Like, well, here it comes anyway.
Here it comes, so we might as well get started. So we'll keep you posted on that. And
1/3 of it, by the way, if that was 1/3 of this can, that would cover up, let's see, almost that much of the entire thing.
It'd be ridiculous. For a warning label? Really?
It's crazy.
I mean, what, you can't read the labels that are on there now?
Also, if you are old enough to buy cigars, don't you think you're old enough to already know and or have figured out and or read a smaller label?
Wouldn't you think?
I mean, come on.
Wouldn't you think?
Did you know that McDonald's coffee is hot?
No, because
they actually put that on the cup too.
No, I was going to say no because I bought a cup and I don't remember reading it. But maybe I haven't had McDonald's coffee in a while. So, warning: coffee is hot. Yeah.
Contents may be hot.
My favorite warning label of all time was on a ladder I saw in the hardware store, and on one of the steps it says, "Do not step."
Not a step.
Yeah.
What?
Okay. Whatever you say, I'm with you. I'm with you. So James Brown is here, and James, real quickly, you were with one of my favorite breweries. Quite frankly, I'm a big fan of the Ballast Point product.
So am I.
Lots of great IPAs, lots of very creative beers and variations brewed. But little did we know, and kind of stumbled across last time, that Ballast Point also had connections to a spirit company. In fact, completely by coincidence, the show you were on, where you bought beers, I actually brought in a rum that was a Ballast Point rum, and it was like
having no idea.
Having no idea, yeah. And so we laughed about it and enjoyed the rum. And you mentioned at that point in time that as the Ballast Point Brewing Company had been acquired by Constellation Brands, that the owners had kept the distilling company and that there were big plans. So I think we're seeing some of the results of those big plans
you are
in front of us here, aren't we? Yeah.
So I guess it's been about 2.5 years since the brew was acquired by Constellation, and shortly thereafter, the founders of Ballast Point and that leadership team basically kept the distillery, rebranded as Cutwater, sort of retreated to San Diego and California to the home market, and then sort of started developing that portfolio. So a lot of the brands, including that rum that we had, are still available.
That rum was good, by the way.
Yeah,
that was 3 sheets, right?
Yeah, the 3 sheets. Well, it was the barrel-aged version. So there's a white rum called 3 sheets, and that is a version that they age in charred American oak like you would a bourbon. And if you remember, it kind of drinks like a bourbon.
Very much so, yes.
Sort of sweet rum finish, but then again, bourbon sweet too. So, we still make a lot of those brands. In fact, if not all of them, but what you see out in front of us is kind
the
of
brand card,
a little sell sheet
that's
there.
a lot of brands on
No
there.
kidding.
And really, I think that's one thing that's particularly cool about our distillery is that I think I don't really know any distillery that has the depth in the portfolio that we do. I think a lot of people either make vodka or maybe they make gin, maybe they make whiskey. We kind of do it all. So we have vodka, rum, gin, we have an herbal spice liqueur, we have barrel-aged versions of that. We have several rums.
I'm guessing this requires a group of different people, each who kind of specialize in a particular spirit.
You'd be surprised. So the original employee and really one of the 2 founders of Ballast Point, his name's Yusuf Cherney, and he's just sort of a fermentation savant, I guess you could call him. The whole reason Ballast Point had spirits in the first place is that he just wanted to start tinkering. And that was about 10 years ago. And he actually took an old fermenting conical, turned it upside down, put a gin hat on it, and started making what's now our Old Grove gin. So he created the program himself out of basically spare parts, developed it over time, and has essentially taught himself to make vodka, rum, gin, bourbon. We have a single malt whiskey that's actually in Houston. We make moonshine, and then he started developing these canned cocktails, which include all of our real spirits. So that's one of the benefits of having that wide spectrum of spirits is that we can do this. So it's we do have a couple distillers. I think that really just comes from sort of the home brewing origin of Ballast Point. Yusuf was a home brewer. He still teaches home brewing, and home brewers are tinkerers, and they make a lot of different things. And so I think that's reflected in our portfolio as a spirits company.
I'd just like to say I want to steal one thing that you said. I am not just a person who drinks a lot. I am a fermentation savant. That's how I would like to describe myself from now on. I think it works. Not a fermentation savant, perhaps in the same way as you said.
Right.
But
an enthusiast.
An enthusiast. There you go. An aficionado, as it were. So what are we going to start with tasting today?
So I think we should start with the vodka mule.
Okay.
Again, like that, well, in that we make all of the spirits in-house, we distill them, we also make all of the mixers. So a mule, of course, ginger beer. So this has our Fugu vodka in it.
The mules are this is one of the most popular drinks out there right now.
It is.
Just in general, not just yours specifically, but just in general, the mule has become quite a thing, hasn't it?
It has. And I think if you go to any craft cocktail bar, you're going to find a mule on the menu. And I guess what differentiates them is how spicy you want to make your ginger beer. I think ours is a really nice balance, but it's very spicy, very distinct, and it is actually our most popular canned cocktail. So it's a good one to start with.
And I can see why this is so popular because it's just got that very easy, very refreshing, sort of easy to drink vibe. Now I'm not the world's biggest fan of the taste of ginger, but in the right combination with the right things, it totally works, and I find that to be one of the cases.
I like a good ginger ale, or ginger beer kind of thing. This, to me, like straight out of the can, the way it is right now, cold, to me, is just a hair too sweet. But I bet with ice, that would be perfect. You know, like that to me, like it's good this way. But I'd like it with just a little bit of ice and a little extra water down.
Yeah, and really, I should say these are made to be enjoyed out of the can, but you can pour it over glass. I mean, it's legitimately vodka and ginger beer. It is a cocktail.
Well, in the defense of the drink, I do that with soda as well.
Yeah.
You know? I like it a little, with ice and a little watery.
And this is carbonated. Are all of your canned drinks carbonated?
They're not. For example, the margarita is not, because you don't carbonate margaritas. This lemon whiskey tea here is not carbonated because you don't carbonate iced tea.
Sure. I like the high amount of carbonation in that ginger, though.
The effervescence
works
adds
for
to
this.
it.
Yeah, it makes it very bubbly, very sparkly. I like that.
So if you want to stay in the vodka neighborhood, we make a series of vodka sodas. This is the vodka soda grapefruit, which in Texas is a very popular
Mm-hmm.
flavor, of course, being our.
I've been drinking grapefruit fizzy water lately. So
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
enjoying it.
yeah. So basically, this is LaCroix, but it's 7% alcohol.
And by the way, so is grapefruit vodka. Just plain old grapefruit vodka is delicious.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had grapefruit vodka.
Oh, dude, deep eddy grapefruit. That's good
Oh, yeah?
stuff.
Yeah, so
I
that's
don't remember having that one.
it's kind of what you'll get from this. It's 7% alcohol, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and gluten free for those that care. And it is our Fugu vodka with twisted grapefruit and our own house-made soda.
You described this perfectly. It is like a grapefruit LaCroix, except
See,
That's
and I like
7%.
this especially because of the lack of sweetness in it.
Mhm.
This is particularly good.
Yeah.
I agree. I would go this way before
Straight out of
I
a
would
can.
go to the mule. I think, yeah.
Sure.
So we also have a vodka soda lime, a vodka soda orange, and a vodka soda cucumber, which is really refreshing. So
Wow.
they all just drink kind of like that.
And now, what is Fugu? Is the brand name of your vodka, right?
Yes,
Is there a meaning
it is.
behind the name?
Well, yeah. So Fugu is the you might be able to pick it up on
The puffer fish?
on the camera. But yeah, it's the puffer fish, which is, if prepared improperly by a sushi master, will actually kill you.
Yes.
But if prepared properly, it's apparently one of the most delectable pieces of sushi you can enjoy. So
Since you
How would
use
you
the
like
word,
to be the guy that figured that out?
yeah.
right, there's probably a little trial and error. But
Since you use the word apparently, I'm taking it.
yeah.
Not.
I've
going
never
down
had
this path.
Fugu, but so it's a very smooth vodka, but obviously at 40% alcohol, it's got a sting to it. So I think there's a nice little play on words there. But
That's about as refreshing as it gets, though. I dig
That's
that.
yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
right out of the can. That's
Yeah,
I
quite
dig
delicious.
that. And you mentioned you got again. It's in lime and orange and
cucumber,
cucumber. Wow, wow.
yeah,
Very-
perfect for the pool.
Yeah, this has got summer afternoon
Yeah.
written all over.
You got my wife over there smiling. She's like, the cucumber one sounds so good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a great start. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll sample several more. Plus, we have some beer to try. I have. Are you familiar, Ian, with Adelbert's Brewery
Yes.
in Austin?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, they have an amber ale called Scratchin Hippo. Are you familiar with the
yeah.
Scratchin Hippo? All right. We'll sample some of that coming up.
I'll act like I've never tried it before.
Okay, good. That'll work out perfectly. Do you know how it got the name Scratchin Hippo?
I do not.
Okay, I can surprise you with one thing.
There you go.
Please. It's Smoking and Toasting, and we will be right back.
Do you want to try some of these?
Yeah, Adam, you want
Yeah.
adjustments?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, that's what's so nice about the vodka soda, though, is because soda water is just carbonated water. You really, it's just a vodka soda.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a less is more
it's
thing. I
great.
mean, you really get the vodka on the back
I like
end.
that with the
and-
grapefruit though. The grapefruit's so
Yeah.
nice.
Let's see, I'll probably have a cucumber. I mean, I'll have to taste it on the air, but just so you guys can.
Refreshing, isn't it?
Here you go, sir.
Thank you.
Well, no, but I do have a line.
Cucumber, grapefruit, lime,
Alright,
orange.
good stuff.
Yeah, the cucumber's really refreshing. I mean, cucumber's just a refreshing
Yeah.
flavor. It's just like, you'll get that in the gin. Our tonic has cucumber in it.
Mhm.
So and that really stands out.
That's good. That's very good. All right, we'll plug Chris Hart's thing.
The puffer fish.
The fugu.
What's the alcohol content?
The vodkas are 7. The mule is 7. The margarita's 12.5. The Bloody Mary's 10. But most of them are around 7.
The whiskey highball is 10.
That's right.
Are we looking for an article?
Yes, I thought of something that would be very appropriate to discuss here.
You have a line on here that simply says beer in space with an
Yes.
exclamation point.
And that'll be fun to talk about.
Like out of all of these, that's a great teaser.
Sounds like an issue for the fermentation savant.
Yes, doesn't it?
figure out what yeast is going to do in zero gravity.
It's a cutting-edge project touting unique zero-gravity brews.
Pretty cool.
Does that have an effect on its specific gravity?
Might have an effect on the furnace.
That was a joke for all you brewing geeks out there. No one else is going to understand that. Don't worry about it.
Perfect. Oh, I was going to tell you when we went to that Patron event at Ritual with Adam and Brianna. We talked to the Patron rep. She was super nice, very knowledgeable. Talked to her about coming on the show. So Mary's like gone back and forth with her a couple of times. She's got like her regional guy come in. So they went back and like listened to a couple of older shows. And yeah, we think we want to wait until our like brand director comes into the market. I was like, I guess they were impressed with the questions we asked and we're worried about being able
Doesn't want to get too deep.
Yeah. I was like,
we're not that over
I
the top.
don't think so either. No. But okay.
That's. Well, maybe we need to take a poll and see if we go a little too deep into the technical side of
That'll be
things.
good. That'll be good for that poll to take, I think. So. All right, ready when you are. Oh, wait, let me wait 1 second. Let me grab the beer. I did not know you were familiar with this amber ale.
Well, Adelbert's is delicious.
All right.
I hadn't seen it in a can before.
Yeah, this is the first time I'd ever seen it either way. So
Everything's going to can.
I know, I hate it.
See, I like it.
Except for this, right?
I hate it. No, well, this doesn't bother me. Yeah, but like
We've
beer,
had this discussion.
beer. I like my beer in a bottle. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it stays colder that way.
I gotta drink it faster.
That's usually not.
It's really hard to shotgun a bottle.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Sound like you know from experience.
Ready when you are. Ready when you are, sir. Segment number 3.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 88. James Brown is in the house with us. James is with Cutwater Spirits, and we are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Before we got too far away from the vodka drinks, which we just sampled, are you familiar with Hangar One vodka? Have you heard of Hangar One?
I have.
Hangar One is doing something very weird. They're making vodka out of San Francisco fog.
I don't know what to say about that.
I've just been watching your face. I didn't know what you were
I
saying.
might actually be a little speechless on that one.
Yeah, they the distillers in Hangar One, which is a California-produced artisanal vodka, are employing a fog-catching netting technology to capture fog, according to Kaylee Shoemaker, the head distiller at Hangar One.
That to me sounds a lot like a large plastic sheet on the roof.
I think that's pretty much what it is, yes. They then convert the mist into fresh water, which they combine with Napa-sourced wine, and finally the liquid is distilled and turned into a limited edition spirit, just 5,000 bottles, which sells for about 3 to 4 times the price of regular Hangar One expressions. As gimmicky as it may sound, the article I'm reading from says, fog catching is an idea whose time may have come, because what are you going to do with all the rolls of plastic sheeting you have in your garage? No, it's considered a possible way to combat drought. It's been tested across the world. In any case, the Hangar One team hopes that the latest release will raise awareness about water conservation efforts. So that's what it's all about. But Fog Point Vodka, they sold out in 1 week. First 5,000 bottles.
Madness. What was it? Did it say what it sold for?
Well, it didn't give a price in the article, but it said it's 3 to 4 times. I guess Hangar One is probably what a
average price, 25, 30 bucks.
Yeah, $35 vodka probably for a 750 milliliter bottle. So figure it's around $100.
Fog catching.
Fog catching. Yeah.
But so the question is, if fog catching is is a solution for drown. Don't you think that if you have fog, you probably have humidity?
Well,
Probably
it's
not that dry.
yeah. You know, I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's too foggy in the Sahara Desert. So
Right. So
yeah.
fog catching won't help you there.
No, but I suppose if you could catch fog, it could help. You know, I don't know.
I mean, there's a rare tribe of Death Valley fog catchers.
Your point is well
I
taken.
can't make
sir.
this up.
Yeah.
Look how straight my face is. Right.
Before we go back to the spirits, I thought we would taste some of this Scratchin Hippo that is from this brewery in Austin called Adelbert's. And Adelbert's is, I guess, it's been in Austin for a while. You know a bit about Adelbert's?
Well, I don't know much about Adelbert's, but I know that their beer is delicious.
Well, here's the story behind the name Scratchin Hippo. Apparently, the guy that basically came up with the original brewing, you know, like the initial master brewer for Adelbert's, was in Kenya, and he was sleeping one night in the little wooden structure, the wooden house where he was sleeping in Kenya, and the building began to shake, and like he thought there was an earthquake going on. And he and the people that were sleeping in this building got up and raced outside to see what was happening. And it wasn't an earthquake at all, but it was a hippo, which had walked up and was scratching itself on the side of the house.
Oh, mercy.
And so Scratchin Hippo is named after that particular story.
That's hilarious.
And there is Scratchin Hippo Amber Ale
So
from
just
Adelbert's.
just a funny thing, you know how they always, like in cartoons and in pictures, they always characterize the hippo as being, you know, cute and big. And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're actually one of the biggest killers in Africa.
And they're really mean animals,
They're
too.
vicious
Yes.
and terrifying.
They really
Did you know
are.
that?
I did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people think that they're like, you know, fun and lovable and stuff that gets birds right around it.
They will destroy you.
People
Yeah.
think that about bears.
Hmm.
That's what Yogi Bear and Pixar have done to us.
Right,
We think
yeah.
animals are for
Did
cuddle.
you ever watch that movie, The Grizzly Man?
Yeah.
Grizzly man?
Have you seen this?
Unintentional comedy.
Yeah, this guy. Okay, so this crazy guy calls himself the Grizzly Man, goes and lives with bears. This is a documentary. This is a
isn't
real
Grizzly
thing.
Adams, the TV show.
No. This is not a joke, but this is like a real deal Grizzly Adams, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, I'm gonna spoiler alert. At the end, he gets eaten by a bear.
At
Who'da
the end of the
thunk it?
movie, he gets eaten
It's
by
a
a bear.
documentary.
Oh wow!
It's not just a movie. It's actually a documentary, and he actually, like, this is real. He actually gets eaten by a bear,
Hey,
So-
Mr. Chocolate.
Let me
and
ask
they have
you
it
this.
recorded.
Let me ask you this: do you think that in the beginning of the documentary, they knew that's how it was going to end?
I think the documentary
It was made. It was made out. He filmed everything himself,
Oh,
so he
yeah.
sort of unintentionally
Yeah.
made the film, and then the documentary is sort of about him and his life, and
Using the
after
footage.
he had already.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So they don't show the.
No, they don't. They don't apparently have video, but they have audio.
Well, he has video. He just Herzog.
Oh,
forget
they
the
just
director's
didn't
name,
show
he
it.
just didn't show it.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you this: I don't know anything about getting eaten by a bear, nor do I want to. But this amber ale is delicious. Wow, this is good.
It is good.
This is not what I was expecting at all. First of all, it's a much darker color and a much higher viscosity. It's a much thicker mouthfeel than I was expecting. Usually an amber ale, and I like ambers, but usually amber ales are more like a blonde, you know, in terms of the mouthfeel and stuff. Maybe just a little bit maltier. Wow, this is surprising, and I think absolutely delicious.
There's a lot of caramel.
Yes, caramel and malt. A lot of malt.
Lots of malt.
I'm not surprised that you like this
Yeah.
because you have a tendency, Ian, to
Yeah,
like
this
the
is
very
all malt.
malty beers, and this is all malt. James, your thoughts?
I like it. We at Cutwater were cross drinkers, so we
Mhm.
still drink beer,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, this is really nice.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Cross drinkers.
I like that. We've learned fermentation savant and cross drinkers on today's show. By the way, coming up in the next segment of the program, and we still have some spirits to sample here, but coming up in the next segment of the program, we're going to be introducing a new feature on Smoking and Toasting, which is called Random Observations. These are just things that happen during the week where I'll observe something or Ian will observe something, and it's worth sharing with you guys when we get together and do the show every week. It may or may not be related to beer or liquor or cigars.
or anything.
or anything else, but it's something that needs and deserves to be shared. So we'll do that in the next segment. In this segment, however, we're going to switch spirits. Correct?
We will. How do you guys feel about tequila?
We're on a spiritual journey.
I am on a spiritual journey, looking to achieve tequila nirvana.
All right. Well, I'm excited to share this with you guys. So as I mentioned, we distill everything that goes in these canned cocktails. The exception being the tequila, and that's because you have to make tequila in Jalisco, Mexico, or it's not tequila. So
Right, it's not called you can't call it tequila.
Right. In which case,
Even
you
if it's
couldn't
made from
sell it.
even if it's made from agave.
Right.
Right, but you wouldn't want to call it a tequila-like substance called Bob's
Agave spirit.
agave spirit.
Right.
Agave spirit.
So,
By
but-
the way, they have a whole lot in this line. I don't know if
Yes.
you can see that because I have no idea how the videos come across. They have a whole lot of drinks in this line, and these are all sessionable too. Like most of these are at 7%.
Although tequila is higher, isn't it?
Well, the margarita is 12.5, so it's pretty strong.
And
but,
so you mentioned you guys don't distill the tequila.
Well,
What tequila do you use?
So, I mentioned Yusuf earlier, one of the founders, head brewer at Ballast Point for many years, head distiller at Ballast Point, and now the head distiller at Cutwater. He still teaches homebrewing at UCSD, and one of his students basically has a relationship with a distillery in Mexico. And although we don't say who, so it's through that personal relationship, Yusuf was able to go down to their distillery, actually help them with some of their fermentation procedures, and sort of oversees the production of what we use in our canned cocktails, and then hopefully in our own bottled tequila, which we hope to have at some point. So even though we don't distill it in San Diego, we do have a hand in the distillation process, and
So
we
you're
source
involved,
it
yeah.
from Jalisco. So it is 100% certified
It is actual tequila.
tequila. That's
Mhm.
right. So we'll start with the Paloma. If margaritas are kind of the gringo drink of Mexico, the Paloma is the actual drink of Mexico. If you're not familiar, it's tequila, grapefruit, and soda. A lot of people will make it with squirt, which is a grapefruit soda. So we make our own grapefruit soda, and of course, like just from opening it, I can smell the tequila.
So are you telling me this is a more authentic Mexican tequila drink than the margarita? Is that
It
what you're
is.
telling
Yep.
me?
Yep.
Wow, interesting. A Paloma.
It
I
is-
like the tequila smell.
Delightful.
The Paloma. There's a joke in there. somewhere.
Okay, I'm loving life right now. This is terrific. It is like the best way I can describe it is like a tequila soda,
Wow.
like a margarita soda.
Yeah, this is really interesting.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Was not expecting that at all.
First of all, it drinks. This isn't 12%, is it?
No, this is 7.
Okay, I was gonna say it drinks way too easy to be 12.
For those of you
Way
who
too
don't
easy.
know, 7% is like a pretty big beer.
Right.
When you get closer to 12%, that's more like wine is what, 15 or
Yeah.
13?
Yeah.
So here's a better way perhaps to explain it that maybe will communicate with everyone directly. 7% is like a beer that I would drink. 12% is like a beer that Ian would drink. That's the way we would probably describe the beer and alcohol.
Well,
levels.
There's that.
One way I like to talk about it is because people, typically spirits are measured in proof, and although this does have real spirit in it, the way I like to think about it is because of my history at Ballast Point, Sculpin IPA is 7%.
right.
So if you drink a couple
damn good
Sculpins,
beer, by
you
the
will
way.
be pretty well on your way to feeling pretty good.
Mhm.
Let's say that. So these drink very easy because they're well balanced and they're delicious, but they are pretty darn strong. So you are getting your money's worth. If you do the math on, a cocktail that's 12 ounces, by the time you add soda and ice and everything, it pretty much comes out to what the ABV is on these things.
Right.
So they are full strength. They just are measured differently.
Why are these so much better than, for years there's been, it kind of started with the wine cooler craze back in the 80s, and then there were like all these, whiskey coolers and different types. Why are these so much better?
Well, I think that canned cocktails, or not even canned, but let's just say ready-to-drink cocktails,
Ready-to-drink cocktails, yeah.
have been tried in the past, and typically
Henceforth known as the RTD.
the RTD or the RTE, ready to enjoy.
Oh.
Uh,
Better.
But I think there's a lot that are still in the market that are flavored malt beverages. They are actually beer. I don't want to name any names, but if it's a spiked lemonade, that probably means that it's actually beer. It's malt based.
What if it's clear and it's very highly fizzy and a lot of people drop a little Jolly Rancher in it? I think we all know what I'm talking about.
Flavored malt beverage. So for one, I mean, a flavored malt beverage just isn't. I mean, go to a taco shop that doesn't have their liquor license, and they say, "Oh, we have margaritas." Oh, really? Yeah, they're wine based, and you're just, oh man, it's a bummer,
Not
right?
So good.
So these are real spirits, so that's a huge difference.
Right.
Also, we're a craft distillery. We make everything small batches in house, so that's what's going in here. So the quality is there.
The better ingredients
Right.
helps.
And
It beats the hell out of a Seagram's Golden Wine Cooler, I can tell
it
you
does.
that.
And so you're getting a legitimate craft cocktail here instead of a flavored malt beverage with sugar.
Or a Bartles and James.
That's right.
The Bartles and James Fuzzy Navel.
Wow, that's good. So now this one is actually a margarita, right?
Yes, it is.
This is not carbonated. Now the Paloma is a carbonated beverage, right? It's
It is.
completely
It is because it has grapefruit soda in it.
right. So that's where the carbonation comes from. But this is more like a, let's just say, a traditional
It is.
margarita.
It is.
Okay. Interesting. I smelled the tequila actually more on the Paloma than I
Yeah.
do on this,
Me too.
at least on the nose. But it's there. It's just not as much in the front. And fascinating.
Drink's pretty easy for 12%, doesn't it? 12.5.
Yeah. It almost has like a brown sugar vibe to it.
See,
on the finish.
so this is delicious because it's so limey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm the guy that always just squeezes the extra lime into my
Mhm.
margarita.
Yeah.
you know?
You know, a lot of mixes out there are kind of a sweet and sour. They just have a very, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just not a natural lime flavor.
but
We
this-
actually use lime. So that's the primary flavor you're getting, but also we use pure cane sugar, which I think that's interesting that you mentioned that, Cruz, because, you know, agave is a lot of times used in margaritas.
Yes.
But we use pure cane sugar in all our canned cocktails for
Mhm.
sweetener, and so that's what you're tasting there as well.
That's what the sweetness is that my palate is thinking is brown sugar, but it's that pure cane sugar, which is just a real pure kind of sugar taste.
But it has that kind of bitter lime bite on the end. It's so
Mhm.
good because it's not leaving you with just sweet. Like a lot of those pre-made mixes and stuff,
Yeah.
they're so sweet. You can hardly drink them. I always have to add, well, generally much more
Tequila. Yeah.
to try and kill it. Sometimes
Oh,
I
yeah.
water it down, but it's not really water.
Well, let me just tell you that I have discovered that those mixes can work really well. You just have to ignore the instructions, because the instructions on the mix will tell you 2 parts mix and 1 part tequila. That is backwards, my friend.
But guys, we don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Because Cutwater exists.
This is in
Well,
a can and delicious.
I was just about to say, if I have like a box of these or several boxes
Yeah.
of these at my house, all I really need is for people to leave the room for a moment and allow me to open these and pour them into some margarita glasses, and people will come back in and go, "Man, you make great margaritas."
And right
Yeah.
before they come back in, you dab a little water on your
Yes,
forehead.
right. Yes, exactly.
Work hard making these
Oh, man,
margaritas.
no, what you do is you put some ice and water in a shaker and you just while you're pouring.
Chicka.
Yeah, wow. How?
This is oddly good. Like I don't think of cocktails out of a can
Yeah.
as being good. However, these are oddly very
They're
good.
surprisingly good, right? And
Well,
and
yeah. How
yeah.
do you get? Okay, so this is obviously canned at some point. At least a few weeks ago at the earliest, right?
Yeah.
And could be on the store shelf for a month or two, maybe before you buy. How does that stay good? I realize it's sealed in a can, but
well, unlike beer, distilled spirits, it's not a living beverage like a beer. So the shelf life is much longer. Soda though has a shelf life, and a lot of these have soda in them. Granted, soda that we make, but we continue to test these. These are new. We haven't had many of these for well over or a little over a year. So they're at least a year shelf life, and they could be even longer. We continue to test them. So it's but you don't have the issue with beer where it's actually still
It continues
a
to
living
evolve,
beverage
right,
and is evolving. It's been distilled, it's been mixed, and it's been canned. But I will say it's easier said than done to do this. It's not like we just had this idea and just started putting stuff in a can. It takes a lot of R&D to get the balance that you're tasting out of this, and to get it to just to work technically. I mean,
and
yeah.
still be good by the time you
Right.
make it and ship it
Okay,
and it's
so
in the store.
just coming from small time, I find it difficult. If I'm making 1 or 2 drinks,
Mm-hmm.
man, I can make that happen in a shaker. But if I got to make a pitcher, that's a whole different ballgame. I
Yes,
can't
it
imagine trying to get your recipe right to
Right.
make it at this level.
it's difficult.
And it'd be good and not be too sweet and not be
Mm-hmm. Right.
too alcohol-y. That's a term I just invented.
Right.
Shakespeare did it. I can do it. Anyway,
We've come up with a lot of good new terms on this show.
We're-
Yes, we have.
we're innovators.
Yes, we are. Do you have a favorite among your canned spirits?
I love them all. Right now, I'm really digging the Paloma.
Yeah, that Paloma's really
Yeah.
good. Really good. But I don't know, this margarita is hard to say no to.
Yeah, I do love margaritas too.
Now, is the margarita just called margarita? Lime
It's
margarita?
called lime margarita. I
Margarita.
suppose that leaves the possibility open for some different flavored margaritas, but yeah. So
You
for
could do
now,
like a strawberry margarita.
We
or
could,
Some of the
we
other,
could.
Yeah.
we might. We'll see.
All right. I'm going to enjoy this. We're going to take a break. When we come back, this show's random observation. We'll do a little more tasting. There's still several unopened cans here. Plus, Sierra Nevada, potentially a competitor of your former beer company because it's a San Diego
Competitor. Well, they're
Yeah.
they're not San Diego. They're Chico, California.
Okay. Oh, you're
But-
right. You're right. You're right.
Competitor, but we love each other.
Sierra Nevada has a thing called Hazy Little Thing. It's an unfiltered IPA. We're going to try it coming up in the next segment, along with several more of these canned spirits from Cutwater. I'm so glad you're here, James. Thank you for being on the
Hey,
show.
thanks for having me.
You're listening to Smoking and Toasting, and it's show number 88.
Awesome.
Is this you?
I don't have one.
No. Was this your cup?
That is alarmingly good.
I know.
Would you rather try
They're
the
really
Paloma
good.
first or the margarita?
They're better than you think they'd be, but if only because no one's ever done this like we're doing. I mean,
Right.
it just hasn't been done with a.
So I'm so used to like the pre-mix margarita stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously pre-mixing vodka soda.
Yeah, it's easier said.
But that
yeah,
was
easier to do.
delicious.
Yeah.
Like that was really nice.
I mean, the thing is, we really do make things that we
That
want to
good?
drink.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of our core values is making things that we want to drink. And so we're
Which
not
seems so simple, but
Yeah.
yet, yeah.
well, but we're not doing appletinis and we're not trying to make sweet, commercially popular things. We're making things that people that actually like spirits would actually drink. And so
Right.
when you see these on the shelf, you think, and then you try them and you're like, oh, this is legitimately a cocktail.
Well,
Actually,
I
you
noticed there's no margarita with beer in it in your lineup.
Oh.
Right.
No, you should mention that actually in the next
Yeah.
segment because these are not aimed at the canned spirits crowd. They're aimed at
Right.
people who are spirits drinkers.
Yeah.
Or cocktail drinkers.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. When you first hear in a can, you're like, I love cocktails, but not in a can. But really, and I would like to talk about this on the broadcast, but it's not necessarily replacing your bar at home or the bar. It's
being able to
that
take it with you.
There are places you want a cocktail that you until us you could not have one.
On the
yeah,
beach?
the boat, the beach,
Oh,
the
man.
pool,
Yeah.
camping, golf. I mean, you can't. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't bring all the component parts to make. When we tried this Bloody Mary, I mean, a Bloody Mary.
That takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot, unless you just want to go with a mix. And kind of like margarita mixes, they're varying degrees of quality. Our mix is the best on the market. I think you're going to love it. But this is just ready to go right out of the can. So it's not meant to replace cocktails, but just be.
So we're going to say all this again in just a minute
Yes.
on the
In
actual
fact,
program.
let's do that now.
Yes, Tyler, vodka. Your brother put up a comment.
Ready?
We are ready and waiting.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 88. Can you believe they've let us do 88 of these? That's
No one's
hilarious.
stopped us yet.
No one has stepped in and said this must end. So it's a pretty amazing thing. We are even sponsored. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Those people can make a steak like you wouldn't believe. And we know, of course, the magic word when you go to B&B.
Have you been to B&B?
I have.
Bacon.
Yeah, it's delicious.
The Chef Tommy Bacon.
Oh my God, it's so
Unbelievable.
good. It's so good. So here we are with a new feature on the show, and it's random observations. And random observations are things that we will collect during the week, and we feel like they may be, of course they may not be, but they may be good enough to share with you when we get together and do this program during the week. And they may be suggestions, they may just be things we've seen, but we'll try to have some sort of moral core to each of them. And here's the first one, because this is my observation. And Ian, you know, please contribute to these as you have random observations during the week in between the shows, because we aren't here every day. You know? Okay. Random observation number 1: if you are bald at least halfway back on your head, nothing wrong with that. But the man bun may not be your best grooming choice. I'm just saying.
Okay, I can keep on the same theme.
Yeah?
The newest trend in hairstyles I'm noticing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little long in the back,
Mm-hmm.
kind of short on the top.
Yeah.
Still not cool.
It wasn't cool when it was Billy Ray Cyrus, and
Saying
it's not cool now.
You saying the mullet is making a comeback?
Yes.
I have not seen this. I've not observed this.
I saw a guy. I saw a guy a few weeks back. I wanted to call him Mullator. He looked like some kind of mullet superhero. It was unbelievable.
Well, I did actually observe a guy bald all the way back to here, but with enough hair back here to do a man bun. Like, that's just not necessary.
I guess it'd be different if you had shaved back here.
Well, if you did it on purpose, I don't know, that'd
And
be
the
different.
Chinese
Samurai
culture.
look,
Right.
right?
It's pretty popular
Yeah,
in
that'd be
China.
different. I would allow that.
I think if you're there, you just got to give in and
Yeah.
just go ahead and go short.
Yeah, go
That's
short.
the only
It's
noble
okay.
way to handle that.
The
And
only
we all
noble
know.
way. You've got it right.
See?
You've got it absolutely right. All right, let's open with the beer in this segment. This is from our friends at Sierra Nevada. They actually did this beer, I believe, at the brewery for several years, and finally decided to can it and send it out. But it is unfiltered and comes right out of the tank, and it is their
Straight up.
Hazy Little Thing IPA. And I will tell you that as much as I am a fan of the IPA, this worries me a little bit because I generally am not a huge fan of unfiltered beers. It depends. There are some of them I like.
You're still talking about the chunky beer that I brought you.
I know. The unfiltered beers can be a bit much. So for me, just I don't know. Sometimes I'm thinking there's a reason for beer filtering, but
It smells good.
it's got a real citrusy smell to it, doesn't it?
It's got a little dankness to it that I kind of like.
You like
just the
dank.
smell. I like
Dank
the dank
is-
and the smell.
Dank is one of our favorite words on the show.
I thought you like malty beers.
I do, but if I'm gonna have an IPA, I like something. Holy cow, that's delicious. I
Wow,
like
that's
something
good.
balanced. I like something that is a good flavor from the front to the back and isn't like chewing on a pine cone.
So they don't describe this as a juicy IPA or a New England IPA, but I think they have just schooled the entire New England area on how to make one. That's good.
It's really good. And what I think is really impressive about it is a lot of, I mean, of course, hazy IPAs are all the rage right now. Everybody has one. It's kind of what IPA has become. And if you're a brewery, you kind of have to make one, even if you're a big brewery.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a big brewery like Sierra Nevada or Ballast Point, which we love, you have to make a beer that's shelf stable
Yes.
because you have to be able to sell it across
And
your entire market.
hazy IPAs are inherently not.
Exactly. So the fact
So
that
how do
they
you
can
do that then?
It's very difficult. I'm sure they spent a lot of time figuring that out. But I think it's really impressive that they can pull off the style and you can go buy it at HEB.
Mm-hmm.
And see, and again, I really do like multi beers, but if I'm gonna have an IPA, I want it to be balance.
Balance,
This
right.
hits all those points.
You don't want to just be hit in the face with hops.
Right,
and nothing
yeah.
else.
I don't want nothing but bitter aftertaste and nothing in the middle or up front. I don't want to just be hit up front with hops and then have nothing on the finish. I like that full ride, the full balance all the way across. That's where I appreciate it.
I'm digging it. Wow. I think that's really good and surprisingly refreshing. And I'm not picking up any of the things that trouble me about unfiltered beers. There's a little bit. I've told people before. Sometimes unfiltered beers actually give me a headache.
Hold that glass up. Let's look at that.
All right, let me pour a little more in just so you can kind of see how hazy it actually is on the camera.
Yeah.
It is though. It's not really thick and viscous.
No.
It's a definite sort of smooth.
But you can't see right through it either.
But yeah, you can't. How many fingers am I holding? So that's really, really good.
Agreed.
I'm impressed. Whenever I can get you to really buy in on an IPA, I'm always impressed with myself.
There's a few. I did drink after you were here last time. I drank quite a few of those grapefruit sculpins.
Oh, those are so right. Those are so good. Oh my God, I love that beer. And there's a lot of different. I realize you're not part of that company anymore, but there's just a lot of different iterations of the IPA and the sculpins even in that beer lineup.
There is, yeah. I mean, a well-balanced IPA, like you mentioned, that drinks well front to back is one that you can do a lot of variations on, and it'll sort of accept those flavors really, really readily. So
Very impressive. Very impressive. All right, let's move into some of our remaining spirits here. Where are we going next?
Well, it's funny that all that IPA talk is a really nice segue into gin. And one of my good friends, Crystal Angelo, if you're watching.
What up, Crystal?
She's affiliated with Pine House Pizza in Austin, actually. Fantastic brew pub up there. But she once told me that gin was like the IPA of spirits. And
is it because it's so floral?
Well, yes, in the fact that there's a lot of variety within IPA because you have all these different hops to play with, and depending on how you use them, when you use them, which ones you use, you're going to get a different bouquet, whether it's spicy or hoppy or bitter or piney. And gin's kind of the same way. Gin is a sort of a neutral grain spirit that you're infusing with botanicals, and so depending on what botanicals you want to use, kind of like hops, to complete the analogy, you can create a different type of gin. So our gin is called Old Grove Gin. I mentioned earlier that it was the first spirit that Yusuf made back in the Ballast Point days, and we still make it now. It's still made on his little homemade still that used to be
I love that.
a fermenting vessel for beer. And so we take that Old Grove Gin. Actually, let me show the box to all the millions of people listening.
The Old Grove Gin.
Because this is, when you go to the store, so we'll avoid payola and plugola, but when you go to your liquor store of choice, that's what you want to look for. So this is our Old Grove Gin, and it's a very citrusy sort of gin, really nice sort of botanical combination.
While you're pouring that, talk a little bit about how difficult or maybe easy it is to get the liquor store chains, the different people that you have to decide, hey, we're going to carry all of these. We're going to dedicate the shelf space that it takes to put these in our store.
That's a really big challenge for us. So there's a lot of brands out there.
Yeah.
And so first you got to get your distributor on board because they have a zillion brands in their warehouse, and they're not in the business of storing spirits at their warehouse.
Sure.
Because they want to move them. And then you've got a shelf space issue. So we make about 14 different varieties of these canned cocktails, and it's hard to find space. But I'm really proud to say that the fact that you're looking at all these and that we have about twice as many as you see here on the table, they're really popular. We're doing really well. And so people keep bringing more in, and they're more willing to give us a little bit of slack to have probably more brands on the shelf than most suppliers, particularly because we've only been in Texas for about 2 months.
Wow.
So you're tasting the gin and tonic.
Two words: cucumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the tonic water that's in there, again, we make it in-house. We infuse it with cucumber and grapefruit. That cucumber really stands out, makes it super refreshing.
Yes.
And of course, it's that combined with our Old Grove Gin.
So is it the grapefruit that's giving it that bitterness on the end? I really like that bitter finish because
it keeps it from being too sweet.
Right, it keeps it from being all sticky, and it makes it more refreshing. So it has this little bitter snap at the end. It's quite
you know,
good.
it reminds me of something you said a little bit earlier, which is that these are not made for the canned cocktail crowd.
Right.
They're made for people that like spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And this is maybe one of your best examples of that. This is for somebody that likes a gin and tonic.
Right. So
You
it's
know?
actually one of our core values as a company is we make what we like to drink. So I think you guys have noticed when you've tried all of these that, I mean, they're not, you know, this is not an appletini. It's not it's not sweet. It's not cloying.
Right.
I mean, it's a little sweet with regard to the soda, maybe for your palate in some cases, but
That's just a me thing on the soda.
Right.
Like when I said about the vodka mule, I think a little ice would just fix that right up and make it
yeah,
perfect.
and I know that you meant that subjectively,
Yeah.
but the point is these are made for people that enjoy spirits. These are real spirited cocktails, and again, we make what we like to drink. So, you know, we make a lot of rum, which isn't necessarily the most popular spirit in the world. We just make things that we like to drink that are for people that
This is
like to drink.
delicious. I can see this. Like one of the things I like about this too is you can taste the flavors kind of independently and how they blend too. The cucumber is huge.
The cucumber, the
had that
grapefruit.
Grape bitterness on the end, and then you actually taste the gin in a very good way. Like because that's in a gin and tonic, it should taste like gin and tonic. You know, I mean.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're making it as a mixed drink, people try to add stuff and cover up those flavors, but this is good. It's very straightforward
It really is.
and it's very simple.
So let's try one more in this segment, and then we'll take a break and do our last segment.
Okay.
Where are we headed next?
So let's move to the whiskey lemon tea. Of course, we are in the state of Texas. Everybody loves bourbon, as do I, and I know y'all do too.
You
so
caught me.
we have a couple of different varieties. We have a whiskey highball and this whiskey lemon tea that we're going to taste that have our black skimmer bourbon. So I also brought some of the black skimmer, which I'm sure
we'll be trying this.
we'll try this at some point. It is the black skimmer is a straight bourbon blend, which involves our Devil Share bourbon. And this
I
is
like Devil Share better than Angel Share.
oh, yeah. So
Good.
so this is an Arnold Palmer with bourbon. And again, one thing I'm most proud of is we're not, you know, we make the bourbon. This is not neutral grain spirit that's flavored one way or another.
Well,
this is real bourbon.
Yeah, this is what's so interesting actually about all of this is that these aren't, you didn't go out and necessarily just contract with other spirit companies and, you know, get whatever kind of a deal you could cut, because I know how that's how that works. It's about cost and efficiency and all of that. Instead, you're like, we're going to make these spirits ourselves and make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it a craft cocktail. I think if you want to use the term craft, I think that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't really have a legal meaning.
Ian, talk to me about the nose on
It
this.
smells like fresh iced tea and bourbon.
Well, and that's what an Arnold Palmer
I
is,
love
right?
that.
Right? With bourbon, yeah.
Like the iced tea smell is so big and fresh. It doesn't have that preservative iced tea smell. Because I actually drink unsweetened iced tea and try to find that, by the way, in a bottle. And then when you do find it in a bottle, it always has that preservative smell and taste.
I will tell you right now, this is better than any bottled
this is
iced tea
good.
I've ever had.
Yeah.
Putting aside the fact that it has bourbon in it for a moment, like you're right, it doesn't have that cloyingness that so many bottled iced teas have. You know, like the Snapples and that type of stuff. Like I get that people like being able to buy a bottled iced tea. It's a wonderful, but yeah, it has that.
Yeah.
And this
just
doesn't
sticks
have
in
it.
Yeah.
This is like a pure iced tea flavor with the bourbon. It's really, really
I
wonderful.
totally want this with a cigar.
Oh,
Wow.
totally, dude.
You know?
Totally.
Like that and like a good medium cigar.
Yeah, it's delightful.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. Wow. Okay, so this is a good time to take a break. We'll come back with our final segment. Ian, in our final segment, I brought along a beer that I just think is something you're gonna potentially be all about. It's the Founders. We love Founders.
I love Founders.
As a brewery. They're a fantastic brewery. They have great products. Well, we have their 2018 KBS, which is Kentucky Breakfast Stout. And this is something that, much like the Bishop's Barrel or the Divine Reserve from St. Arnold here in Houston, people stand in line around the brewery for. And so we will be tasting that coming up. Plus, we've still got another unopened can. What is that?
That is our Bloody Mary, and it is,
The Bloody Mary. And then we have to try
and then we're gonna get into the bourbon.
the Black
Yeah,
Skimmer.
we
Yes.
got to.
All right, so it's going to be a busy final segment. You're listening to Smoking and Toasting, show number 88. Thanks for coming along.
I love Founders and their absolute fearlessness of being malty.
Yep.
Your
They have-
fearlessness
I
and
don't
maltiness.
I don't know of a single beer of theirs that I don't like. But
They do malty really well.
Dirty Bastard is
Yeah,
so
that
good.
Scotch ale is really
It's
nice.
so good. The Porter is so good. The Breakfast
Of course,
Stout.
breakfast stout's a legendary beer.
Well, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Have you ever tried? Have you tried the new one, the Solid Gold, the lager?
haven't.
They're going after. They're basically getting into. Basically, quit calling us a craft brewery. Just call us beer. I mean, they're competing on price and flavor profile with Yingling.
Wow.
I don't want to say domestic because that's
Who are
like
you talking
light
about?
beers
You're
generally.
talking about-
Founders, yeah, they came out with a
Founders, yeah.
Solid Gold lager that is
Yeah, true.
basically designed to be priced and compete with the likes of Yingling and macro beer, and so
Wow.
they're making a big play. They're
What the heck?
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm sure it's
That's
good,
isn't it?
but
You know who is surprising me at making themselves stay relevant?
So
is,
weird. That second.
Mhm.
is Guinness.
yeah,
Their blonde ale and a couple of their newer ones are really pretty good beers.
yeah, I haven't
Crazy.
tried them.
I'm surprised at that. Founders, I like Founders. It's a good brewery.
They're still one of the best session IPAs that I've ever had is the All Day
All Day.
IPA from Founders.
Oh yeah,
That is just a beautiful.
of the style.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
Tough to top. I'll be right back. guys.
Is that the different one?
no, it's just colder.
Oh, gotcha.
Like now that we've been here for an hour, it's like all my samples are getting warm.
I am so surprised at how good some of these are. I'm totally
Yeah, me
picking
too.
some of these up for summer,
It's like
floating down
it's
the
like
river.
A
Yeah,
prank.
we don't fuck around, man.
This
Shit.
is a way to put down the river.
Yeah. Like totally.
That's coming up. They're doing something like that in the river. That festival they do in San Marcos, I think.
Yeah, I thought about contacting those guys, and I might be a little late to the game, but typically to be involved in a festival, it's going to cost money, and we
Yeah,
are a
for sure.
startup, so
Yeah.
I don't have money.
So you gotta be real selective
I
in
gotta be
where
creative
you
about how I use it and what I
Yeah,
do.
no,
And,
sure, no,
um,
sure.
it is perfect, but also the floating aspect of that is really distinct from the festival. They do have shuttles that'll take you back and forth. But you're right, these are perfect for floating river. Perfect. And so what I can maybe do to take advantage of that is try to get in some independent liquor stores around the San Marcos River or the Comal, but I don't know that participating in the festival is necessarily
I could see
gonna
you
work.
selling a ton once people realize they can bring actual cocktails on the river.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there that don't want to sit out there and drink beer all
Well,
day.
you can't take glass. It's even if you
Right.
could legally, it's just not practical.
So anyone who wants to bring a cocktail has
Right.
to bring a big cheap. So like the rules on a lot of those areas now is you can't even bring a container that you throw away. You have to bring a reusable container a lot of times.
Yeah, I heard that
Like if you're in,
in San Marcos, I think they recently made cans illegal, so that's not good for me. But
that's tough.
I don't know if that'll stick.
But you could fill up a Camelback pretty quick with one of these.
You could.
A 4-pack of these.
You could.
Wait, they made all cans of it, or just alcoholic?
I haven't looked into it myself, but yeah, I
That's
think basically it was a littering issue. People
the-
were picking up their stuff.
In the
Yeah.
city of New Braunfels, it's like that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Okay, that's what I meant. So it's
Okay, Bronx.
you're right. It's New Braunfels. So the
Okay.
Comal runs right through New Braunfels. I think the Guadalupe might also.
Yeah.
So just in Comal County, I
Makes
think it
sense.
was made. But I mean, I don't know if that'll stick because a lot of those businesses probably rely on the
Yeah. Can sales.
can sales from river and lake and
Well, I know plenty of places have been really successful. Austin, for one, is banning plastic bags. At grocery stores, you can't get a plastic bag anymore.
Yeah.
So that worked really effectively as far as their, but I don't know about cans.
yeah. I
One
mean,
of those
obviously,
things.
you don't want. It's just a shame that people can't
Throw
police
their shit
themselves.
away, yeah.
Like you just
Yeah,
want
it's-
to trash
it's
the river.
unbelievable.
So next year, that when other people come, it's not going to be nice. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
But
it is. It's a
I
world
saw
we
you
live
pull
in.
out something extra. Is that just an extra Bloody Mary?
yeah, I just wanted a colder one now that
Okay,
I've
gotcha.
been here a while. It's
Gotcha. Okay. All All right, final segment. Thank you, everyone.
Did you say extra bloody?
All right, here we go.
Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 88. James Brown is in the studio with us. James is with Cutwater Spirits, and James, of course, formerly with Ballast Point, but you really didn't change companies. You just kind of gravitated to the original company, is sort of what you did, right?
In a sense, I should note that even though we have historical ties to Ballast Point and our leadership and founders are the same, we're a distinct company.
You're a completely
so
different
there's
company because Ballast Point was sold.
Right.
And, yeah, right. Okay.
Right. So there's no legal relationship there, but
So now that you are not at Ballast Point,
mhm.
speak to me for because you're in a really unique position to be able to speak to this. When a company, Constellation Brands is not AB InBev or Miller Coors, in fairness, but when a major company like that buys a craft brewer like Ballast Point, what are the downsides and what are the upsides the way you would see them? Does the beer suffer, A, ever, and B, is it bad for the craft brewing industry in your opinion? Now that you, because I wouldn't ask you necessarily to speak to that if you were still at Ballast Point.
Sure.
But now you're standing apart from that. You're with an independent distillery. So how does it look from where you stand?
Well, I would say that, and all I can really speak to is my experience. So I'm sure that each situation is different, and the character of the company that makes the acquisition makes a difference,
Right.
and the people that are there. With respect to Ballast Point, I was there for about a year before the acquisition on the sales team, and I was there for more than that post Constellation.
Mhm.
And for the most part, I felt very little influence from Constellation. Things pretty much ran as they did. It is true, at least with my experience, that the beer didn't change. If anything, we had resources to invest in our lab. Ballast Point has $1 million lab on each coast now,
Mhm.
where they're measuring everything down to the DNA level of their beer. And so the quality, the shelf life, levels of dissolved oxygen are industry
Things we don't
breaking.
even think about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, from a quality standpoint, from a beer standpoint, nothing really changes. Constellation, they sell Corona, Modelo Pacifico, and they've obviously
Mhm.
been very successful at helping sort of America fall in love with Mexican beers, and so those are largely sales and marketing, I guess, techniques or tactics, and so that's what they're really good at. So
Did it open up opportunities for Ballast
Yeah,
Point
absolutely.
to get into places that it wasn't in before?
yeah, absolutely. If you're trying to grow your brand, which I guess some people are comfortable with the size that their brewery is, but obviously Ballast Point, even before that, had designs to grow and wanted to grow, and growth equals opportunity, and so I think that's never really a bad thing. But so that sale really did allow Ballast Point to go from what was becoming a national brewery into an international brand, and it's still on its way to doing that. And so, they're still making excellent beers, and it really does just mean that places where you otherwise couldn't get an excellent IPA like Sculpin, you can now get it.
Right.
You can get it at the airport. You can get it at, Chili's.
Which is
maybe,
so
I don't know.
oddly opposite to the situation you're in now, where you're breaking ground on a brand new company.
Right.
Right.
On a brand new
and
product.
brand new ideas, yeah.
Right. I mean, for me personally, it's a little bit more fun to be a part of building a brand than maintaining a big one.
Right.
And maybe not everybody feels that way, but it's exciting for me, particularly with these canned cocktails, because it's something that nobody else is really
Yeah.
doing. We do have some competitors, so I don't want to act like we created something here, but really the breadth that we're doing it with, the quality, and just the way that we're doing it is pretty novel, and so it's fun to be a part of that.
Well, you mentioned too that you're, with a brand new company and a brand new product, you're out there. You don't have all the funding to go out and be a part of every festival, be a part of everything, and have giant banners everywhere and all that stuff. So you have to be more selective and creative
Yeah.
with your marketing techniques. That's an
Yeah.
interesting side of it, I think.
Yeah, but I think almost like if you broke your arm and you were forced to use your offhand for 6 weeks or something, you would almost become ambidextrous.
Right.
When you don't have money, you have to creatively problem solve, and so it actually leads to a lot of innovation that you would just throw money at the problem. So it's actually kind of a good thing to not have money. And a lot of people want to ask you for money that feel like marketing people feel like it's their job. Like, well, look at this platform we're giving you. You owe us money. And if you just tell them, look, we're a startup. I don't have money. Then they go, okay, well, your stuff's really cool. Like, we'll just take it.
Not a loud bottle opening pop,
I'm assuming it's not highly carbonated.
but it is highly acclaimed. It says so right here on the label. This is Founders KBS, a flavored stout. It says is good for everything a flavored stout to be good for. I'm going to read that again. Is good for everything a flavored stout ought to be good for. So I missed a word.
I was gonna say they didn't put that in there. They had a bunch of those when they came up with the label.
Yeah, I was a little worried actually for a moment.
We're gonna sit here with this beer until we come up with a logo.
Let's see what we do. Now I am pouring some coffee into some beer into cups here. The KBS highly acclaimed flavored stout. Ian, I just thought of you when I saw this, and I thought, this is, maybe the Founders equivalent of going after a Bishop's Barrel or maybe one of the Divine Reserves from St. Arnold's.
This looks and smells
Like ice cream.
like hot chocolate
Yeah.
with a little shot of espresso in it.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
It looks amazing.
And
like ice cream.
it says it's ale brewed with chocolate and coffee, aged in oak bourbon barrels. Not that that's necessarily all that revolutionary, but then you could say that about every Bishop's Barrel release too, and yet they still seem to be revolutionary every time you taste them. So,
What is the ABV on this?
Ian, you have a blank look
Because
on your face.
because it drinks
I'm trying not to cry. This is so delicious.
extremely smooth.
This is
Wow.
so
It
delicious.
does
I'm going
drink
to guess
smooth,
that probably at 12 to 13.
12.3.
Yeah,
Well, you're good.
I'm pretty good.
You're
at that.
really good at that.
Almost as much.
He's a living ABV number.
Margarita.
I know, that's right. This is really delicious, and I don't know what you talking about, espresso? Wow, I taste the espresso on that.
Yeah. So it says coffee on the label, but I have a more like the bitter espresso kind of thing. But then you have that chocolate sweetness counteracting it.
Right.
That cocoa kind of flavor. There's a little of the malted, like that classic. When you go to a place and they make a malt out of that malt powder. Like and you end up with that one little bite that has the undissolved malt powder. That's like the aftertaste on it because it's got a little bitterness to it as well.
Wow. Yeah, and it's very almost
And very naturally sweet flavor.
yeah. It's not an artificial sweetness at all.
Right. It's
So what cigar do you want to drink with this? Or do you want to smoke
this would
with this?
bury a lot of cigars. So
Yeah.
I would probably go, oddly enough, something on the lighter side that would work.
Like kind of float above it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of either float above it or around it. Pardon me. Kind of either float above it or around it, because if you had something like the cigar that I talked about earlier, which is very chocolatey, the flavors would just kind of bury. One would bury the other. But if you went with something like you were asking about cigars earlier, and I said like a Fuente Hemingway series would be just right. You got that nice natural wrapper, very classic cigar kind of flavor to go on top with the classic tobacco kind of thing going on that doesn't have a lot of dark flavors and complexity to it, but has those nice lighter toastiness and all that stuff would go really great with this.
Or you could go completely the other way and go with a chisel from the Flor Dominicana and just put one really, really big thing up against another.
There's that. And they would either fight each other until they both broke down like a train wreck, or they would form like Voltron.
Yeah, I don't know which would happen.
Something would happen.
But I think you're right. I think I would go. I think I would probably go a little milder. Okay, so we've got just a little bit of time left. If we're going to go in order here, do we taste the Black Skimmer bourbon first, or do we go?
Let's do the Black Skimmer first, just because the Bloody Mary is spicy. It may,
I can't
off
imagine
your palate a little bit.
following this with a Bloody Mary would be a little strange. So
Yes,
I
it
would
would.
agree with that.
Yeah, and just like you introduced the gin and tonic so nicely last segment, doing a bourbon barreled beer is a lovely introduction to actual bourbon.
Actual bourbon,
Actual
yes.
bourbon.
So we'll try this and see how we do.
Hello.
So this is
bourbon.
our Black Skimmer. It is the bourbon blend that you tried in the lemon whiskey tea a moment ago, or a segment ago, I should say. And look, I love bourbon. It's my spirit of choice if I had to pick just one. And we do a really great job. In fact, I should note the American Distillers Institute awarded this a silver medal about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
For bourbon. So we do make a bourbon called Devil Share that is very award winning. In fact, it won the gold medal at the World Spirits Competition. But because we don't have that much of it, in order to make bourbon and sell bourbon and have a lovely craft cocktail tap room that we do, I guess it wouldn't be called a tap room, but we have a craft cocktail bar attached to our distillery,
right,
in case you find yourself in San Diego. And so we want to be able to serve bourbon there. So we didn't have enough Devil Share to just serve that. So our Yusuf went to Kentucky and picked a couple bourbons that he really loved. And so it's basically 1/3 our Devil Share and 2/3 other bourbons that we love. And that is what creates
And what's
the Black
creates
Skimmer
Black
blend.
Skimmer,
Mhm.
yeah. I could pick you a cigar to go with this.
This has a lot of sweetness to it.
It really does.
Very bourbon sweetness. Very big sweetness. It doesn't drink like it's over 40%.
Very smooth.
It's a lot smoother. It has an interesting heat to it that doesn't show up until the aftertaste, and then kind of rolls back through and then pulls back again. So I find all those things interesting. I can see this working really well with a lot of mixed drinks because of that sweetness imparting that very distinct bourbon flavor.
Right. It's a very bourbony bourbon, if that makes sense.
Yes, it's about as classic bourbon as it gets.
Yeah, and unfortunately you can't buy our Devil Share right now. We do have a lot of it sleeping right now, and it will be probably in a couple of years we'll have plenty. But this is available in Houston and elsewhere. So it's a lovely bourbon, as I mentioned, silver medal, big caramel, vanilla.
Big caramel. There's some oak in there.
I'm getting a little bit of the corn too.
Definitely flavor.
Just pulling through some of that sort of I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but a sort of a corn wheat, like a big sort of agricultural.
Corn has a very distinctive flavor in whiskey.
Yeah.
We tried that Balcones corn baby. Is that what it's called, or was it Blue Baby? And
Baby
corn?
Blue.
Baby Blue.
Blue Baby.
Blue
Baby
Baby.
Blue.
Yeah.
Which has such like that corn flavor. This has a little bit of that.
A
profile,
little bit of it, yes.
And it's somewhere in the middle of the flavor too. It's like it's not right up front. You get that big sweetness, and this is somewhere in the middle, right
Has a
before it
wonderful
rolls into
finish,
that oak
though, this does.
and sweet finish and caramel finish.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Caramel big time on the finish.
So if I had to describe this, I would say sweet and caramel.
I like it.
Caramel.
All right, so we have just a moment left. Let's see what else we're going to.
So
we could totally change gears.
We're gonna end it here with the Bloody Mary. So we make
This is where it ends.
a fantastic Bloody Mary mix. You can buy it just in the non-alc variety. And in fact, when we were at Ballast Point, we had this mix as well. And I'm gonna pour one in here just so everybody can see the consistency. But even then, it was one of the most popular.
That looks like a Bloody Mary.
One of the most popular things that we sold was our Bloody Mary mix, even though it was just sort of a side project.
I don't know why, but this makes me think about being on an airplane.
Yeah.
About flying. Flying and Bloody Marys seem to go together for some reason.
And of course, this is Bloody Mary with our Fugu vodka. So it's 10% alcohol, but the mix is just fantastic. I really think we sincerely have the best mix
smells
on
like
the market.
pizza sauce.
Wow,
it's awesome.
It's got a really nice heat.
Like
on
I mean
the
that
back
in the
end.
absolute best
wonderfully
way.
spicy. Yeah, wonderfully spicy. Oh yeah. I could totally wake up on a Sunday morning with this.
And this has won a bunch of awards too. For those that give out Bloody Mary awards, we have won them all, and it is. I think it's just the best mix right out of the bottle.
This
that
has
you
a
can get.
great amount of spice to it, too.
Mm-hmm. It really does. It's not
Like a lot of times when you get something, they say, it's spicy. It's not really spicy.
Well,
This is spicy.
This is spicy. Yes,
Well,
it
This
again,
is
is.
for real.
As I mentioned, we make things we like to drink. So we like spicy. Now we do make a mild version.
Oh,
but
do you?
We do, and that is for sale in a canned variety as well as the mix. But let's be honest, this is Texas.
If you're
It's
gonna
spicy.
go,
This is so good. I
Go
literally want to use this for pizza sauce. It's so good.
and it's thick enough, you probably could.
I know.
The
It's
consistency
amazing.
is great. And again, you can drink these out of the can, but if you wanted to cut that thickness a little bit, ice, vodka, whatever.
I don't know why you would.
Yeah, it's perfect.
James, where can we find these wonderful canned spirits?
The best place to find these is at Total Wine.
Okay.
Total Wine carries every single variety we've tried today, as well as this black skimmer bourbon. They also have our Devil Share single malt whiskey. They've got our Fugu.
The one you
horchata
said was
vodka.
really hard to find.
Yeah, so we don't have the Devil Share bourbon for sale.
Oh, okay. The single malt.
The single malt whiskey, which is, it's not peaty like Scotch. A lot of people have that misconception. It is just American whiskey. We age it like we do the bourbon, but the mash bill is 100% single malt. And so, one other thing I should say about Cutwater that's really interesting is that we actually use a higher grade quality of malted barley, and that comes from our brewing roots. A lot of people use, there's feed grade and then there's distillation grade, but we actually use brewer's malt, which is
Ooh.
really nice. And so, earlier you mentioned quality of ingredients, and we were
Right.
talking about what sets us apart. So all of our stuff is better quality ingredients, and when we distill anything, we use brewer's quality ingredients. So
Well, this has been quite a show. We've done something that I always encourage people not to do, which is mix a lot of different alcohols. So our show will be brought to you by Uber. And,
Yes.
hey, cross drinking.
yeah, right.
We learned that today.
Cross-drinking.
Cross-drinking is what we learned, yes. We learned a lot of things on today's show. James, thank you for being on the program again.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure to have you, and you just brought some really incredible things, some things I'd never tried before. And very impressive. Ian, any final thoughts as we close up? here?
I never would have guessed that I would really enjoy cocktails in a can. Like, it just seems like a strange medium. Like, I drink beer out of a can. I love cans because I like the lack of outside influence when you put it in a can.
Mm-hmm.
But I never would have thought cocktails in a can would be a real thing, and this is a real thing. These
It
are
works.
good. This
Yeah,
is
it
not.
works.
This is not your michelada
Yes.
or strawberry beer concoction thing. This is a real deal. This is
Yeah.
These are made for people who like cocktails.
And for real people who really like spirits too.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them good. Thank you everyone for joining us for Smoking and Toasting number 88. Thanks to our sponsors, B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Thank you to our producer, Adam, on the Wheels of Steel today. Thank you very much. It's been a really fun show, James. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've had a blast.
Please come back, and we'll have you on the show anytime.
Today's
Love to.
video was brought to you by my cell phone.
Yes, and a couple of rubber bands, courtesy of James's
My
wallet.
wallet. I'll need that back.
yes.
We do it.
Have a great week, my friends. We appreciate all of you for checking out Smoking and Toasting, and cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.